Next on Voice of the Veteran, we have some very special guests today. Kyle and Jerry Orleman are experts in the area of service animals. Jerry was an Army intelligence, ASA, Army Security Agency, and Kyle, you are officially Jerry's caregiver. Is that correct?
That's correct. Officially and unofficially.
Very good. Oh, this is going to be a good interview. All right.
Gail, you have any questions for Kyle and Jerry?
I do. Let me start off with. Well, I have like 5 questions here. Now, when I ask these questions, it's certainly for both or either one of you to answer, or both of you to answer, or whatever it is. Whoever wants to speak, you just jump on in and do it. No problem. But the first thing I want to say is what are the dogs' names?
Well, my dog is named Talon, like an eagle claw, and Kyle's name is, or Kyle's dog's name rather, is.
Excuse me?
And Kyle's name is Kyle.
Did you just call your wife a bitch? Did you do that?
Well,
Right up here.
I have a service dog and a service bitch.
Sorry, Kyle. Sorry about that.
You're going to pay for that one, dude.
Well, they look fabulous, but it must be a lot of work taking care of service animals, yeah?
Not for me.
No.
Yeah, that's part of my job assignment. So
That's right. Well, they always look fabulous, that's for sure. Kyle, how long have you owned and cared for service animals, Kyle?
well, actually, we got Jerry's first service dog back in 2008 or early 2009.
Oh.
And so we've been dealing with it for quite a while. And I should also say that our service dogs are both rough collies as a breed. And we're very familiar with that breed, which is why we were able to get the dogs that we were able to get.
Oh.
So we already were very familiar with rough collies because we had pet rough collies for many, many years beforehand. So we came into this in a little bit different way in that we already had familiarity with that particular breed and how to work with them. And when you go back to the question you asked a moment ago, Gail, about the grooming and everything, yeah, there is a fair amount of work to do with that. And that's one of the things that veterans who have service dogs are going to need, or going to get service dogs, need to take into consideration because, yeah, the dogs need to be walked. They do their thing, shall you say, and they have to be cleaned up after. If you're going to have a service dog that's out in public.
Wait a minute. When they do their thing, you mean when they poop?
Yeah.
I was going with
They
you.
do. Yeah, they
Look at
poop a
them.
lot.
Look at them. Oh, they're so beautiful. I can see them on the screen right now. Look at those two. I mean, is that their room or yours?
Everything is their room.
Yeah, I thought maybe
The whole
that
house is their house.
If we've been really good and well behaved, they let us sleep on their bed once in a while.
Oh, well, that's very good. Now,
Yeah,
I have so many questions to ask you guys. I mean, what happens when like a little kid comes up and wants to pet the dogs? And I mean, should children actually be engaging with a service animal? Tell me about whatever about that.
But when they come up and do that, I smack them in the stick here. Anytime, and this is true for more than service dogs. This is for any dog. A person should not come up and on their own try and interact with the dog. They need to ask first. They have no idea what the dog is going to be like, how it's going to be responding. In our particular case, because of service dogs, when they come up, if they don't ask, we ask them to stop and get away, and that is a service dog. And frequently, it turns into a little bit of a lesson plan about service dogs, what they do, and things like that. So we try and turn it into an educational experience.
I've heard Kyle say many times to children, "Oh, I'm sorry, the dog is working." Let me tell you what that means. And she's always very eloquent about allowing the children to understand and admire the animal without saying, "Get your friggin' hands away from the damn dog."
Well, that's what I used to do.
Now, Jerry, tell me something about this. Now, how did you choose that breed of dog? I think Kyle kind of touched on that a moment ago.
Well, Kyle's the one who actually chose the breed, and it's because we've been so familiar with the breed. We interact with a couple of collie groups. We've had collies for a number of years, and Kyle also does a lot of research. And well, she did a whole lot of research about service dogs before we even started in on the training with my first service dog.
Well, and Kyle, how old do they have to be to start training?
Well, that depends, because training is an interesting thing. Most people think of it as a specific period of time where you actually train and then you stop training, and that's not the case. Going back to what Jerry was just saying, before we got his first service dog, I did 2 years of research, finding out what service dogs could and could not do. And again, this was more than 10 years ago, so they weren't as well publicized at that point, and people didn't know what they could do and what they couldn't do then. So did 2 years of research, and then we found a service dog trainer that was within range for us to be able to reach. And because we knew that the dog was going to do mobility work, we needed to find a trainer who could train for that purpose. So
now I want to ask some questions in between, because you're going right through all my questions.
Sorry about that.
No, I just want to break it up so it's a little easier in the post show for people to catch up with the different subjects and stuff. So
Right.
to continue with the training aspect of it. So who actually, what is there like a company that trains these animals that's or are there a whole bunch of companies? And who actually, I mean, it's a job that people have, that they work at a dog facility of some kind and they train service animals. Is that how it works? Or just explain it to me.
There's a number of different pathways, because first of all, not every dog can become a service dog, and not every dog, even within a litter, can become a service dog. So you have to match.
Really?
You have to match the personality of that specific animal. And there are people who do evaluations in terms of the puppies as to which ones might or might not be worthy of going on for formal training. There are also a number of puppy trainers that are actually within prisons that work with the puppies and get them properly socialized in the beginning parts of training. And then later on, there are other organizations that do formal training. And that's a real important thing when you're going to be working with a service dog with the VA. So there's a lot of people who think, okay, well, I can go ahead and train Rover. I know how to train sit and stand and those kinds of things, but there's a lot more involved with it than that.
Oh.
So there's an organization called Assistance Dogs International, and they have certified trainers. It's
And
not
we put that link up for
Right.
the people, and it'll be in the post show for those 2 links that you're going to be referencing right now. So are these animals allowed to go in any building?
Again, that's not a black and white answer, because under the Americans with Disabilities Act, anywhere that the public can go, the service dog can go, because, and this is going to sound weird, but it's the truth, these service animals are treated like prosthetic devices. So anywhere that you could take your wheelchair, or anywhere that you could take your oxygen tank, or anywhere you could take your prosthetic leg, the dog is allowed to go, with
That's
very,
interesting.
very few exceptions. If you're having surgery, they're not going to be in the surgical suite with you. That doesn't work. So
Yeah, I see. I take your point. Yeah.
yeah. And there's also separate rules for air carriers. And there's been a change to that recently, and you'll have that link as well. So part of the training is done by these organizations. Part of the training is done with the handler, because it's as important to train the handler, if not more important.
I was going to say, who trains the veterans to take care of the dog? I mean,
Exactly.
that's exactly what I was thinking.
Well-
and also, I want you to talk about who is the contact at the VA for a service animal. I don't mean the name of a person. I mean the title of a person.
You want to go to the prosthetics department, because oddly enough, the dogs are handled through prosthetics. And when we first learned that, we thought that's totally crazy. but that's actually
You
totally
mean like where
appropriate.
I go to get my socks and arch supports is the
That's
same place.
exactly-
So I could go into prosthetics and say, "Hey, give me a dog."
Well,
They're not going to issue. They're not going to issue you a dog, but yes, they will put you in touch with the organizations that can.
Well,
help
I
you.
don't know, Jerry. Do you agree with that?
well, it's you need a referral before you can go down and start requesting.
Oh, thank you for
You
saying
know,
that. I would have just gone in there and said, "Give me a dog." You know, I'm glad
But,
you corrected.
generally, the referral might come from your primary care, but it may come from somebody else that you're seeing from one of the other departments, possibly from physical therapy. But generally, you do need a referral before you can go and ask for any kind of prosthetic device. And the dogs are devices. In the eyes of the VA.
Well, yeah, the eyes of the VA, they've always got a certain way of looking at things, and we all know that. So I appreciate that comment. Hey, you know what? I'm going to let, I think I already asked one of Nicholas's questions about who trains the veteran to care for the animal. But I'm gonna just let him continue on, and then we're gonna have a insurance question here at the end. So just I'm gonna go ahead and take a break, and y'all talk among yourselves.
That was really good. Thank you, Gail. Hi, Jerry. Hi, Kyle.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
It's good to see you all again. Really good to see you.
We've been missing you.
Yes, we've been missing you also. You all are involved in so many extraordinary things for veterans, and I'm inspired by it. It's great to be able to have a conversation with you. Of course, I've seen your service animals, and they're beautiful, beautiful. And I love the way they have you six all the time. I guess my first question is just going to follow up on what you were initially talking about on how a veteran like myself would be trained to care for his animal or her animal.
Well, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, go through the first sequence that we went through. Like I said, 2 years of research, found a certified trainer, had the dog temperament tested to be sure that he was appropriate to train as a service dog. And then we did 18 months worth of 180-mile round trips to work with that trainer. And everybody who was in our training group were all disabled veterans training their own service dog under the certified trainer's supervision. So it's a long process. And the other part of it is that we still train every day, because a typical service dog can respond to up to, say, 150 different commands, but you're probably going to only use 10 or 20 of them on a regular basis. Well, if this is the day that you need the dog to be able to go and get the emergency phone and activate it to call 911, they don't do that every day. And so if you have to give that command, you need the dog to be up to date on it so they don't go to the refrigerator and get your bag of insulin.
That makes
So training is an ongoing thing every day, and we make it as a fun thing. It's part of play for the dogs, and they get treats when they do it correctly. Sometimes I even give Jerry a treat.
Well, I don't think Jerry's getting a treat today. Jerry, I don't think you're getting a treat today. But I had another question about how much would it cost a veteran like me to train a service animal? Or how much does it cost in general to train a service animal?
Well, that varies from dog to dog and what you want them to be trained for. Just as an example, one of the training sessions very frequently includes scent training, because the dog reacts to scent training. For instance, if you're diabetic and your blood sugar is having a massive change, the dog can pick that up and warn you that something's going on. But the only way they can usually the only way they can do that is if they've been scent trained for it. Well, for one scent, it's going to cost $5,000 and up for the training. So different things become real expensive depending on the difficulty of the training. A lot of training we do on our own because we were trained to do that by the certified trainer that we went through originally. So costs always vary from dog to dog and situation to situation. Some cases, $35,000 for complete training isn't unusual at all.
Wow.
One thing I want to interject here. There are a lot of organizations that are part of Assistance Dogs International, and in many cases they have funding, and so you can get the dogs from them for free under certain circumstances, or they will help you do the fundraising. And again, it depends on the agency that's being used. So there's a very big range available here in terms of what the cost is going to be. It can be a lot, or it can be almost nothing. But you also have the expense once you have the dog for food and for grooming, because when the dogs are in public, they have to be clean. So you may or may not be able to do that grooming yourself. You may need to take them to a groomer, which is what we do with ours. You may have insurance expenses. There's, medical things. They're going to need their vaccinations and things like that you're responsible for too. So again, there's a very wide range involved.
Wow, thank you. That's great information. You know what? It hit me personally too. My brother is a veteran, and he also has a service animal named Harvey. And my brother is a diabetic, and I did not know exactly what Harvey was doing for my brother until Jerry told me. Thank you all. I have
Actually, Nicholas, if I can interject here with that. It's one of the really cool things about service dogs, because their sense of smell is so much better than ours. And a properly trained service dog can alert 20 to 30 minutes before the person can feel that they're having a diabetes problem, or if they have a seizure coming on or whatever. That's why the scent training is so important, because if you're driving or if you're out in public and you're going to have a seizure or you're going to have a blood sugar issue, the dogs can warn you quickly enough that you can pull to the side or take whatever medication is needed or get to a safe place, so that you don't get harmed and you don't end up in an embarrassing situation in public, and everybody involved can be safe. So, I mean, these dogs are lifesavers, and the training for them is very important.
very much so. That's amazing information. I've always just been astounded by the sentience of, dogs. I mean, it's just incredible what can be done. I had another question about the other kinds of service animals or companion animals. Is there a difference between a service animal and a companion animal, or is it the same thing?
They're very different. Service dogs are trained for specific disabilities, and so it's a unique training. A companion animal or a therapy dog or anything like that is strictly for emotional support. And it's an emotional support animal. They don't have the same requirements. They don't have the same types of access. A service dog can accompany you into, say, a restaurant. An emotional support animal cannot. They don't have access to all public places. And there's a big confusion between emotional support animals and service dogs, because a lot of people think that, okay, my dog is an emotional support dog, so I can bring him with me into the restaurant. And that's not true. They don't have access. And then as far as what can be what can be a service animal, it's really limited to service dogs. A peacock can't be a service animal. There is one exception to that, and believe it or not, it's the miniature horse. Miniature horses can be trained to be service animals, but it's not nearly as common as dogs, and they're more limited to where they can accompany or where they can go in public spaces. For instance, you're not going to get a service miniature horse to accompany you in the coach section of an airplane to go somewhere. Just not going to happen.
I can see that. Well, maybe the last 5 months or 9 months, you might have been able to get a service, onto a plane. But I was thinking also, like, how old are your dogs? And I understand you traveled recently to Oregon to a collie group, was that for service animals or for the breed?
But before that, I think something about accompanying on an airplane needs to be said. Kyle had a very interesting experience the last time she flew somewhere.
Oh, really? Go ahead. I'd love to hear it.
Well, there was a couple of things. And one thing that I want to bring up here is that a lot of people think, oh, wow, it'd be really cool to be able to take my dog everywhere I go. And yeah, you can. But the other part is you have to. If you make a decision to get a service dog, you understand that that dog's going to be with you everywhere you go. So that means if you're flying and if you're at 35,000 feet and you need to make a pit stop, that dog's going to have to fit into the airplane restroom with you. And our dogs are 90 pounders. And so being at 35,000 feet and trying to get into an airplane restroom and have the dog between my feet and get the door shut is a challenge. So, but that's part of what they have to be able to do. They need to be trained to be underneath a chair, either in a restaurant or when we're at the VA. We also have a picture of Jerry's service dog underneath his chair in the emergency room at the VA. And they have to be able to be there and stuffed underneath and not make any noise and not interfere with anything. So again, the training is really, really important.
And I've observed it in your service animals. I've seen it. I've watched that behavior and how they sit and how closely aligned they are and in tune with you all. That's amazing to me. I would just say again about how old are they? Your service dogs?
Well, Talon is going to be 5 in a couple of weeks, and he's the blue merle that's
on the right in the picture.
Yeah. And then my dog, Remiel, will be 5, or excuse me, they'll both be 6. Talon will be 6 in the middle of January, and Remiel will be 6 in March.
Wow.
And Remy is the one with the sable face.
Wow. Is that what you were going to say when you went to Oregon, is when you were dealing that? You all traveled to Oregon to a collie group? And was that for the service animals or for the breed specifically?
Well,
go ahead.
That was for the collie group for that particular instance in Oregon. However, that was part of a very long trip when we got Talon, because we had to, God, I don't know how many miles it was, hours, a couple nights on the road to make that pickup. Where was he?
We had to pick him up in Spokane, so we drove over 3,000 miles to get him.
Wow.
And so it's, again, there's a certain amount of work involved in all of that. And so the other thing, that we did some travel recently, that was for the National Convention for Vietnam Veterans of America, and that was also in Spokane. So we had to take both dogs with us, and we traveled by Amtrak. So the dogs got their first long distance train trip.
Hey, I want you guys to talk about insurance real quick, but we do need to wrap it up. But I want to go ahead and make sure that Nicholas talks to you about the insurance, because I think that's a really important thing. But then we're going to have to jump off and say goodbye to you guys. I just wanted to let you know. So go ahead with that last question.
Copy that. I was just going to ask about insurance for the service animals, for your dogs. How does one go about the insurance process with the dog?
Well, there's actually insurance companies that only insure animals. But there's specifics, and sometimes you don't have to pay for the insurance. In our case, right, Kyle, you handle the insurance problem. So,
okay, here's the deal on the insurance. Yes, there are regular companies where any pet owner can buy pet insurance, which is a totally separate thing. Part of the reason that I wanted to be specific on this issue is that there are specific rules within the VA having to do with service dogs, and they can be found on the Federal Register. And the final rule for service dogs, I believe Gail will be putting up as part of the information at the end of this. One of the things that the final rule did is that it makes Assistance Dogs International, their trained dogs have the ability to get a policy through VA that is a wall-to-wall total coverage for everything. And that is a free service that comes if your dog is trained by one of the Assistance Dogs International thing. And the reason that that's important is because Jerry's original service dog, the first one, had a major medical problem, and he required over $40,000 in treatment. If we had not had that VA insurance, we wouldn't have been able to treat that dog. And I can't tell you what the psychological impact would have been if we had lost that dog because we couldn't.
Well, what was the co-payment on something like that?
Because he had this card through the VA, we paid nothing.
All
Wow.
right, that's what we need
Yeah.
to know. And I need
Wow.
to wrap this up just because we have to be able to say goodbye and stuff. Nicholas, would you please wrap up with our guests and just leave me on here so we can go right into the next thing?
Absolutely, Gail.
Love you guys. Thank you so
You
much. Great
Jerry.
interview.
My
Jerry,
pleasure.
Kyle,
Our
thank you
pleasure.
all. Thank
Love you guys.
Love you too. Thank you so much,
And-
Jerry. Thank
and
you.
love
Hey,
what
are the
you're
dogs
doing.
right there? Can we see their little faces? Can you stick them up? Is that even possible? Can we take a little risky moment here?
Mine is under the table, and he's
Oh, where they're supposed to
where
be.
he's supposed to be.
Oh,
And
there's one of them.
Wow.
There's one of them right there. I think he
Yeah.
loves Jerry.
that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
That's-
thank you guys so much. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you.
Would you come back and discuss this again further on another show? Now that we're all,
Happy to.
I mean, you're going to know exactly what questions and what little nuggets of gold that we can learn about, for VA veterans and VA insurance and care. And this has been great.